We've seen the setting of this story. It's the same as the one before, and the significance of it is trust God when you pray. Don't trust in yourself. Now the scenes, there are two. Scene number one focuses on the Pharisee who prayed. And the Pharisee will summarize this particular scene by saying, God, look at me. Because that's how the Pharisee prayed. God, look at me. God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. Look at me. God, look at me. Go, come on in. Don't be embarrassed. We'll just embarrass you by saying, why are you coming in so late? Just teasing you. Thank you for being here. It means a lot for you all to be here. Brother, sister, new sister in Jesus, and she's already studying in an in-depth fashion. Is that not remarkable? God bless you for your great example. The second scene we will summarize by that of the tax collector or the publican's prayer. And we'll summarize that by saying, God, I can't look at you. Because he would not so much as lift up his eyes and pray. Do you see the two different mindsets set before us in this? Now, both of these men went to the same place, a place of worship. They both went to the temple in the story. Both of these men went to the temple for the same purpose, to pray. Both of these men began their prayer in the same way. God. And that's where the similarities end. Watch the posture of the Pharisee. The Pharisee standing by himself prayed. Watch the posture of the tax collector. The tax collector, standing afar off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast. How's that for a posture of prayer? Some get on their knees, some raise holy hands. This guy's beating himself in the chest as he prays. Look at the posture. It's like the Pharisee is standing by himself. He's praying like this. The publican is praying like this. See the difference? The posture will show you the difference of their hearts. Watch the prayer of the Pharisee. I am not like other men. I'm better than anybody else. That's what he's saying. I'm better than anybody else. Listen to the prayer of the publican. Be merciful to me, a sinner. That's not the accurate translation. The definite article is before the word sinner. God, be thou merciful to me, the sinner. And so whereas the Pharisee is saying, God, here we go, let's do it this way. God, I'm better than everybody else. The publican is beating himself. God, I am worse than everybody else. I'm the sinner of all sinners. See how what they prayed prove the different kinds of heart they had. And then observe the perception of self. One is asking God to look at him as and all that he did, and the other would not even look to God and wondered why God would even bother about him. Which of the two in the story went home just if I'd never sinned, justified? Which one went home? Justified. The second one, who did not trust in himself, but in God when he prayed. Now put this story with the previous story, and it says, you need to always pray. And don't lose heart. Pray to God all the time. Pray about the same thing all the time. Pray to God. But when you pray, remember this. Don't expect God to respond because of your goodness. Don't trust in yourself. Trust in God's goodness and in the fact He will do what is best. So pray. Don't lose heart. But when you pray, trust God when you pray. Don't trust yourself. I remember when my family went through some of, I hope none of you ever have to go through some of that stuff that we went through. But I remember saying to myself, just to myself, why is this happening? This kind of stuff happens to people that live in a brothel. We live next door to the church building because we give our lives to God. Why is this stuff happening? It happens because it's life. It happens because we're connected to other people. And other people make bad decisions just like we do. And those decisions bear consequences that sometimes impact us. I can't afford to trust in myself. I must always trust in God who knows better, who knows best. Those are those two stories put together. Let's come to the last three. Two or three. They all are blended together, so we're going to save these for the last section of time that we have to study. And these will be the parables of the wise, or rather the faithful servant, the foolish virgins, and the prepared men of talents. We call it the one talent man, or the parable of talents. And they're all in Matthew 24 and 25. Excuse me, please. And 24. No, 25. Here we go. All right. Let's look at the setting. I'm going to take some time to erase just very briefly. Matthew 24 is one of those passages that people have played with so much and made it say everything but really what it says, probably. I don't say that in a critical fashion. I just say it because it's true. Troublesome times are here, filling men's hearts with fear. Freedom we all hold dear now is at stake. Humble yourselves to God, chasten the chastening rod. Jesus is coming, how does it go? Morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound. All the dead will rise. That song is based on a misunderstanding and a misrepresentation of Matthew 24 and similar passages. So we're going to think about the parable of the wise servant, the foolish virgins, and the men with talents. The setting. The setting goes all the way back to the first verse of Matthew 24. Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. Now, if I'm reading, I think it's Luke's account, maybe it's Mark's. They're coming to Jesus and they're saying, look at all these stones. In other words, look at how beautiful this place is. That's what they were saying about the temple. Look at this beautiful place. It, by the way, had been under construction for 40 years. David, did it take you 40 years to build your house? That's because you're married, right? She made sure of it. Amen. We built a house in Huntington. Diane was responsible for it. I'm telling you, it didn't take 40 years to get it done. The Temple of Solomon, the Temple of the Jews in Jesus' day is called the Temple of Herod because he was the one responsible for making it where it was. It had been under construction for 40 years. And so the apostles said to Jesus, look at all the beauty of this place. That kind of launched the rest of the chapter. Jesus answered them, you see all these things, do you not? Okay, you see these things? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. All this stuff, gone. One stone on top of another, just strewn. Destruction. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be? These are going to be destroyed. When will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Now watch. This is what's in the background of these stories. They ask a time question. When will this happen? They ask a sign question. What sign can we look for? And they ask an end of time question. And the end of the age, they misunderstood Jesus. They thought he was talking about his second coming and the destruction of everything. From those three questions, Matthew 24 and 25 are launched. When you come to the three parables of our current interest, they flow from the Lord responding to these three questions. And Jesus answered them. And the first thing that he does is he answers their sign question. See that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this may take place, but the end is not yet. So he said, sign number one, false messiahs, false Christs. Sign number two, there will be war and rumors of war, but the end isn't yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and because of those wars and rumors of war, another sign, there will be famines and earthquakes. The earth would rumble or quake under horses that would be going into battle against other armies on horses running in the opposite direction. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of birth pains. Just the beginning of bad stuff beginning to start. false messiahs, wars, nations rising against nations, a want of something to eat because of war, earth trembling under horsefoot because of war. All that's just the start. Look for those as the beginning signs. Then they will deliver you to tribulation and put you to death. It's going to be bad stuff. You're going to be hurt, mistreated. Some of you are going to die because of these wars and rumors of wars. You will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Then many will fall away, betray one another, hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. These are the signs that they were given to look for. And because of lawlessness will be increased. The love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. To the end of all that's taking place in these wars and rumors of wars, not the end of time. And the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world. The gospel was going to have to be preached all over the then known world before the destruction of Jerusalem took place. As a testimony to all nations. Then the end will come. You have the beginning of birth pains in verse 8. Then the end is ready to come. Verse 14. So all these signs were given to them to look for in verses 4 through 14. You know why there are erasers on the end of pencils? Because we're not perfect. Right? You know why there's an eraser in my hand? Same reason. So verses 4 through 14, he answers their sign question. Next, he responds to their time question. Remember, at the end of verse 14, he says, then the end will come. So, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel. Now, if you go back to Daniel, and you read Daniel chapter 9, verses 26 and 27, you're going to read about the destruction of a city. The demolition of a city. When you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant, for those who are nursing infants in those days. Sounds just like what we read, isn't it? A little earlier in Luke. I told you, Matthew, we're going to have the same terminology, and it'll be in a context where we easily see it's talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. When you see the abomination of desolation, that's your ticket. You know it's about to happen. That's when it's going to happen. When you see the abomination of desolation. The what? The abomination of desolation. I mean, everybody knows what the abomination of desolation is, right? Wrong. So in the margin, if I were to put Luke 21, verse 20, I'll find out what the abomination of desolation really is. Luke 21, verse 20. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are inside the city depart. Let not those who are out in the country enter in. For these are the days of the vengeance to fulfill all that is written. Also for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days. For there will be great distress upon the earth and wrath against the people. They will fall by the edge of the sword, be led captive among all the nations. Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles all fulfilled. When you see, verse 20, Jerusalem surrounded by armies. The armies in context of the Gentiles. That's the armies of Rome. When Titus encircled the city of Jerusalem to siege Jerusalem in AD 70, that is the abomination of desolation. Jesus said, when you see Rome encircle the city, that's the day. That's the time. All these signs you can look for that are saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and now it's here. It will come when you see Rome encircling the city of Jerusalem. The abomination of desolation. Come down to verse 29. Now in verse 29 to 31, he's talking about the same thing. He's answering their time question, but he does it in a different way. A lot of times in the Bible, punitive punishment, punitive predictions are presented with apocalyptic, end of world, cryptic terminology. The whole book of Revelation is like that. The end of Rome, the end of the Judean economy, and it's all presented in a cryptogram, in apocalyptic, end-of-world type terminology. And so as Jesus is talking about the end of the end of the Jewish economy and the destruction of Jerusalem, he said, here are signs you can look for that say it's coming up pretty soon, and here's what you see to know, okay, the time is here. And don't go back into the city if you're out. And if you're in the city, you better leave quick. And here in verses 21 and through 28, if it weren't for God's looking out for the elect, everybody in there would have been destroyed. But for some unknown reason, we know that Titus pulled back his armies, and as a result, individuals that were Christians in Jerusalem were able to leave. And then they encircled it again, and the city fell. Now, in verses 29 to 31, you've got this symbolic, apocalyptic language, much like you find in the book of Daniel or Ezekiel or Revelation, talking about the destruction of this city in apocalyptic, end-of-world terms. It's going to be the end of their quote world. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, okay, here's the army of Rome, and they lay siege, they circle around the city of Jerusalem. It gets tough in there. He pulls back. Christians in there are able to leave. He comes back. It gets even worse in there. And Josephus tells us that was the time, when mamas would literally take their babies and cook them so that they could satisfy their hunger. Can you imagine that? Tribulation. And so Jesus said, after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. Okay? After Rome has come and done its thing, after Rome has destroyed the city, the sun will be darkened. The moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. The celestials will be no more. That's an apocalyptic symbolic way of saying the leaders of this city will have nothing else to lead. They will be leaders no more. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with the power of great glory. Then you're going to see the vengeance of the Son of Man. Then you're going to know, I am who I said I was. He will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds and from end of the heavens of the earth to the earth. He's not talking about the destruction, the end of the world there. It is nothing more than cryptic terminology, apocalyptic language, saying Jesus is going to come symbolically. The whole Jewish system is going to fail when Rome has done its number on the city of Jerusalem. He's still talking about the time. He said, from the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon, see the time figure? As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that the summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, you know that he is near. At the very gates. You know, when you see Rome encircle the city, pull back, and then come back for one final siege and the tribulation, and all the Jewish leaders lose their power, when you see all of these things happen, know that the end is near. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all, not some, until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. You go to the bank on what I'm saying. Jesus said, when is this going to happen? He said to the apostles, in your lifetime. What he predicted in Matthew 24, verses 1 through 35, took place in the lifetime of the apostles. It is not something we have yet to look forward to. It has already happened. It was to happen in the days of the apostles. So that's verses 15 through 35. After that, he's given them some signs to look for that were pointing to the end. Then he told them, now here's what will designate the exact timing of the end. And after he had gone through answering their sign question and then their time question, he comes to their end of time question or misunderstanding. But verse 36, concerning that day, the end of the age. Concerning that day. More literally translated, concerning that the day. Concerning that specific day. Marking the end of age, the end of time. But of that, the day and hour, no one knows. When will be the end of time? Nobody knows. Not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. Does Jesus know when He's coming again? He said right here He doesn't. Now that He's gone back to heaven, does He know? Not unless the Father told Him. He said He didn't know. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. As they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Now he's talking about the literal coming. He's been talking about his figuratively coming back in verses 29 to 31 in the destruction of Jerusalem. Now he's talking about the end of age and the literal coming of the Son. It's going to be something that happens suddenly. 2 men will be in the field, one taken, one left. 2 women will be grinding in the meal, one taken, one left. That doesn't talk, it's not talking about the rapture. It means one's going to be ready and one isn't. In other words, not everybody's going to go to heaven when Jesus comes. Not everybody's going to go to hell when Jesus comes. Therefore, warning number 1. And this is what Tate wishes you would put in the corner, in the front of your Bible before he ever gets up to preach. Warning number 1. Stay awake. Stay awake. Stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. You don't know when the end of age or the end of time is going to be. So be alert. Stay awake. What does the King James Version say there instead of stay awake?
Watch, therefore.
Watch, therefore watch. But know this, that even if the master of the house had known what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have left his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not expect. Be ready.
Now that part is for all of us now, right?
Beg pardon?
Now that part is for all of us now that can be applied now.
That is correct. None of us know when Jesus is literally coming to call an end to time and then judge all of mankind. None of us knows that. So that being the case, since the angels don't know when he's coming back for the end of time, since he doesn't know when he's coming back, since only the Father knows when he's coming back, we ought to all stay awake, be ready, watch and be ready for when he does come back to judge all of mankind. So he's answering their end of time question here. And he gives them these 2 warnings. Okay? Now, the significance of these stories hinge on those 2 warnings. The 3 stories that we're about to read are stories that tell us how to be ready as we watch. How am I to be ready? How do I know I am prepared when Jesus actually comes at the end of time? And so we come to these 3 stories. Let's pause. It's 15 till. Let's give ourselves 10 minutes. We'll come back at 5 till. And then we'll briefly look at the 3 stories and call our study of these parables to an end. Okay? So let's pause for a moment. About 10 minutes.
It was only like